My journey started 10 years ago in the year 2000 when my 15-year-old son died by suicide. And I remember it took me about a year and a half, almost 2 years before I was able to put myself back together. And I remember going to my first walk. And at the walk I thought, why are we walking? But then it seemed really appropriate because of all the walking I did. It seemed the middle of the night, pacing back and forth and trying to figure this out. How could a 15-year-old kid that everybody seemed like had things going for him end up taking his life? And then all that pacing and all that trying to get to the bottom of it goes back to even my own childhood when I was growing up in my family, where depression ran in our family, mental health issues. My aunt suffered from schizophrenia. But we never talked about any of that. And that stigma, that thing that hung around, kept me from reaching out to my son and asking him, is there something we can do more than what we did? And it was that drove me, trying to get to the bottom, trying to figure out what's going on. And so I started walking, started talking suicide prevention, and then eventually ended up at the University of Michigan where I've been. But it was that walk that started thinking about, why do we walk? Why are we here? And we walk for different reasons. All of us do. All of us have our own things, but there's some things that are really in common. We walk for awareness. We walk to be seen. Because when we're seen, people become aware of what's going on. I'll never forget, it wasn't more than 3 weeks after my son died when I'm standing in my front yard and I had 3 neighbors come by, and each one of them said, yes, this has happened in our family. So I said, why aren't we talking about this? Maybe I could have had a clue. Maybe I would have looked for something different, but because of the silence. So we walk to be seen for awareness, to get rid of the stigma that exists, so people will reach out and talk. We walk to be heard, because when people hear us, they learn. They get education. You see, suicide prevention, and it's real difficult to talk about suicide prevention when we have survivors that are here that have just had some recent losses. It's very difficult because of that pain and the guilt that goes along with it. But I'm telling you right now, we're all part of that, part of suicide prevention, the instant the suicide took place. Because it's our knowledge that we get that chance to look back and learn from, that we can turn around and help somebody else. You see, suicide prevention is actually a 3-pronged deal. We have prevention, where education takes place. We have the triage moment when somebody might be suicidal and we're able to step in with programs like QPR, Question, Persuade, Refer, Yellow Ribbon. The military's is ACE, Ask, Care, Escort. The Navy's is ACT, Ask, Care, Treat. So we have stuff for when somebody's imminently, and we can intervene right then, the triage moment. And then we have the postvention, what we learn afterwards, and how do we take that information and use it with researchers and with other models. And it comes back full circle and comes all the way back again to prevention. You see, I don't know why, and none of us know exactly what was in somebody's mind when they make that decision, but I do know this, that 2 of the 3 things that happen are a person feels like they're a burden and they feel like they're alone. Those 2 things, a burden and alone. However they get there. And we know mental health issues are there and present that, and that's why a person starts from here and they get to that point where all of a sudden this becomes their decision making. But I know that if we can get out here in front and we can give them more tools to work with, we can intervene earlier, we can give prevention efforts up front, we can do screening, we can help them get help, then we don't get to this decision making point. We're handling it up front, and that's true of suicide prevention. The more we can do up front and earlier, the better off that we are. You see, we got to make sure that kids, our youth, that they know that it's okay. Not only as adults, but we know that kids got to know that it's okay. In fact, it's part of their responsibility to be mentally healthy. So we got to instill in them that they know that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for support. It's okay to seek out somebody if you're not feeling well. If you're starting to feel some of those things, those classic symptoms where you don't feel well, sleep problems, eating problems, anxiety, stress, all those things. When we start feeling those things, then it's okay to ask out, and it's okay to reach out. And we have to be there and in place when they do, so we can reach out and catch them and pull them forward. So we walk for those 2 things, But we also walk to heal. Many of us here need some more healing. Some of us have already gone through that process. But to heal, because I know the 2 years that I went through, get the book, you read about that. I don't mean it that way, but it's really hard for me to go there. 48 days in jail and my own issues and not being able to deal with it because of the guilt and the fear and the anger that went along with it. So we need to heal. You know, if anybody's out there feel guilty, please do not feel guilty, ever feel guilty. I had somebody tell me one time, and I like this analogy, but he said, Eric, you did everything you possibly could, so do not feel guilt. But I was in charge. How could that happen? You know, what if I would have done this? What if you can't do that? He said, just think about it this way. Think about back in the Civil War days. He said, when, you know, they had doctors that were working on people. In fact, when somebody would get shot, they'd bring him into the operating room, and the guy would work for one guy, and then he would go to the next guy and start working on him, and then he would go to the next person and work on him. The whole time, he never washed his hands or anything else. And in fact, we had more people die by infection, okay, than we actually did by the gunshots. So do we blame that doctor for trying to save lives? No, we don't. In fact, if we brought him into today's society and had him operate today, he would know that he's supposed to wash his hands. He'd know, but it's knowledge. So we can't blame him for what happened before. In fact, we should pat him on the back because he did everything he possibly could. So do not feel guilt, ever. And then we walk to remember. Because as we do heal, we want to remember. We don't ever want to forget. We want to remember. But we want to remember the love that the person had with us. We want to remember the time that they lived with us and accept that and enjoy it and have that and carry that around with us forever. That's what we want. We want that. So let's define their lives by how they lived and not by how they died, however painful it was. So we walk to be seen, we walk to be heard, we walk to heal, and we walk to remember. So as we're walking tonight, don't be afraid to tell your story. Don't be afraid to listen to the story. If you want to walk in silence for that love and that remembrance, let's do that as well. Thank you very much. Thank you for all being here. Thank you.